Hello friends, welcome to Karmic Path. This video is a little late. I was not well the last whole week, but nevertheless I thought I should probably come out with this video. So these are remedies for Pitra Paksha, and over the last 1 week, 7 to 10 days, I've been getting a lot of queries as to what are the remedies one should do during Shraddh, during the Pitra Paksha. And although traditionally there are some very standard remedies. Nowadays we call them remedies. They used to be rituals once upon a time. Standard rituals which were done once upon a time. They are still done today. But kind of people still want some way of being able to confirm that they're on the right path. And plus, all the astrology loving friends also tend to ask this question that if we have a certain combination in the sixth house, 12th house, 8th house. I mean, what should we donate during the Pitra Paksha, during Shraddh? Now, one of the very basic things which I realized, and I also posted it on the Facebook page for Karmic Path, was um Shraddh and this period is not a very complex thing. You can make it complex, but the basic concept is the Pitris will come to basically take things from you. So when they basically come to take things from you, all you got to do is donate whatever the Pitris like. So say if your father or your grandfather liked uh, a certain dress or a certain dish or a certain fruit or a certain you can say thing according to their lifestyle. I mean, say if they like sitting in a certain chair, I mean, those are the experiences they will look for again. And if you were to just donate them in a place of religious worship, that should basically be it, because that's what they've come to have. In case if you do not remember, then in that case you may want to go for some very generic rituals, which I think probably in India is done on a very regular basis. And the traditional remedies or the traditional rituals, I should say, I mean, Pinddan and Tarpan, which is basically balls of rice, sesame beads, and water to be given. People also actually also know that Pinddan is generally done in Gaya, but they can talk to any traditional pandit and they should, or pujari, and they should be able to get these things done. Shraddh, I mean, is more, you can say, a ritual which is done based on Shraddha. Shraddha means basically faith. And when you do anything, any donation for your pitris with faith, I mean, miracles will happen. But then, in spite of that, since we are all astrology addicts, we need to find something more technical, and we need to find new ways of doing things and make remedies and stuff like that. So, what I'm going to do is basically cover some of the topics at a higher level about what has been written about the pitris, the pitri rin, the pitri dosh, so that people can find them in their charts and see if is it because of that some things are not triggering in their life or some things are not working out. They will get the hints. So also in one of the videos, in one of the Facebook posts, I had actually written that this is an off kind of thing. I mean, off the cuff kind of thing. Rahu is generally also one of the planets which is denoted to be, I mean, uh, having the karkatva of denoting your pitris, especially from the father's side. So if your Rahu Mahadashas and Antardashas are not going very well, uh, I think some of your rituals regarding Shraddh, Pindadan and Tarpan are pending. So better go and do those. And you will start seeing that Rahu will start giving you some beneficial results. Anyways, let's start with the topic for today. Now, many a times regarding Shraddh and also regarding the Pitra Paksha, some people want to know what are the houses getting triggered, how are things related, how are the different houses related with respect to the Pitris. Now, there is a role of the 5th, 9th, 6th and 12th houses in this entire when we're talking about the Pitris basically. So when you're talking about the Pitri Rin, when we're talking about Pitri Dosh, when we're talking about Pitris, what needs to be donated. So as you know, 12th house is the house of Moksha. It's basically uh, those ancestors who have basically been liberated. So 8th house is the house of cremation, and 12th house is the house of moksha, post cremation, when the soul has been set free. However, uh, post cremation, in order for there's a certain time which is the Krishna Paksha of Ashwin. Every year this time will keep changing, but typically at that time sun will remain in Virgo. Uh, This is the time when Shraddha period is basically comes out to be. This is a 15-16 day period, recurs every year. However, sun before reaching Libra, you will always find the Krishna Paksha of Ashwin, which is the month when Shraddha is normally uh, Shraddha dates normally come out. Now, if you remember, the fifth house is the Pitris. Uh, Also, Sun is also the Karak of the Pitris, and when Sun is going through Virgo, you can very well imagine 12th house, which is the house of Moksha, which is basically the liberated ancestors. During this time, somehow the sixth house energy comes up in such a way that all your ancestors try to get back. I mean, there is a rin which you have towards your ancestors. I've already talked about that in the previous video uh, regarding the Pitris. That is when basically those who have been liberated, which is the 12th house, those who have um, undergone the cremation, which is the 8th house ritual, and those who are basically right now in the 12th house zone. It's also called the zone of the Pitris, where the Lord Yam is supposed to have complete control. They try to come back. Typically, it is denoted in a way that there is a hole in the sky through which basically the Pitris come back to the earth. They start looking for those experiences which they had as human beings in their human lives, and which is when they basically come and expect that you should go and serve them, you should do seva for them, you should basically go and donate things so that they can relive those experiences. Now, if this ritual is not done, I mean, this is not a concept which I understand completely, but indirectly it looks like somehow the 5th, 6th and the 12th house is involved. I'll probably, when I'm able to get into much deeper depth, maybe I'll be able to make a deeper video some other time. Now, traditional texts like BPHS and all, I mean, and some of the texts, probably Jatak Tattvan, I may be wrong about that, uh, but probably I read a few months back. Uh, Typically, Pitridosh comes about when there is a problem with the 5th house, the 9th house, and there is an involvement of the 6th house in between. Also, if Rahu, Saturn, Ketu, they kind of start troubling Sun or Jupiter or the 5th and 9th house, that's when Pitridosh has started accumulating in the chart. 5th house with Rahu Saturn or the 9th house with Rahu Saturn, it shows very strong Pitridosh in the chart. Now, what does that mean? Now, Rahu is basically something that denotes a ghost, a spirit, somebody which is not in living form. You cannot see, it doesn't have a physical body. And Rahu gets associated with the 5th house, or Rahu gets associated with the 9th house. It typically tends to show some kind of Pitririn. Rahu does not allow children to be born or your Pitris to be born. 5th house is not only your Putra but also your Pitris. Does not allow them to be born because Rahu kind of eclipses Sun, and Rahu also does not allow, does not give very great results in the 5th house. Also, the Jivakarak Jupiter, which is typically also the lord of the 9th house from a Kalpurush perspective, and the 9th house lord, if Rahu was to get associated there somehow, that also kind of stops the energy of the Jivakarak Jupiter from giving you proper results. So you will find that people, I'm not saying it is going to happen all the time, but you will find a strong probability that people with the 5th and 9th house afflicted, they will have trouble having even male progeny in their house or having progeny in their house. Why? Because Sun is not only is not a female planet, it's a male planet, and so is Jupiter. So you will find that people having Pitridosh in their charts, they will the male progeny will tend to suffer, or male progeny will find it hard to be born in that family. Sixth lord typically, or the 6th house, involvement with the Sun or the 5th house lord or the 9th lord also shows these kind of difficulties, setbacks, not only to your fortune, to your luck, but also to the progeny which may be born. Either it shows delays or impediments. Rahu and Saturn are two of those planets which basically, now Saturn is your karmic debt, and this karmic debt is not only coming from previous births, it will come from even from your ancestors. So it is a sum total of a lot of these karmas which Saturn carries. And when it starts getting associated with the 5th house, you're going to have delays in having children, and it kind of gives you results which are similar to what Rahu gives with the 5th and 9th house lords. Other combinations which you will find where basically you will find some kind of Pitridosh happening is Sun Saturn combinations, Jupiter Mercury combinations. Now Jupiter Mercury combinations, Jupiter is typically the 9th lord and the 12th lord. Again, not only your father and your guru, but also the 12th lord, which is basically your Pitris. And Mercury rules the houses exactly opposite to Jupiter and kind of acts like a blockage. It's the natural lord of the 6th house. So Jupiter Mercury combinations also show Pitri dosh, and what I have seen in many charts, Rahu Saturn combinations, because now Saturn is, I would say, judge dread, the punishment of karma that basically comes to you, and Rahu is basically your Pitris, more so from the paternal side. So those families where these kind of Shraddh rituals or Tarpan has not been done properly or in time, I've I've seen many a time Rahu Saturn combinations coming and giving Pretvada. I mean, I would say technically it is called Shrapati Yoga, but then I have seen problems of ghosts happening in such families. It becomes even worse if basically Gulika if Gulika is also involved in these kind of yogas. So we'll discuss those charts some other day. Moving on to the concept, you get a hang of basically how basically the 5th, 6th, 12th and 9th houses are involved, and Rahu and Saturn, which act as blockages and give you Pitradosh in the chart. Now, BPHS in chapter probably I think 70 talks about Puru Janma Shrapati Yoga. I mean, this is different than your Pitradosh. So let us not confuse them. Many places you'll find many combinations where basically you'll find some kind of shrap or curse basically coming from your ancestors, even from your previous births. The two are different. We will not mix them up uh, in this video. Now, let me try to give a little bit more depth into or insight into what Pitradosh is all about, so that you get a flavor of the planets, how they are working, why it would give some kind of Pitradosh in a chart. Now, Sun and Moon are the parents typically. Jupiter is also the Karak for being the father, which is the 9th house lord, and Rahu is typically a planet which eclipses both the Sun as well as the Moon. Now, if Sun and Moon are very strong, the Jiva Karak is very strong, but Rahu, which tends to eclipse, that means Sun and Moon, their power has gone down. You'll find that in charts where the Sun Moon is very weak and Rahu is very strong, you'll find the influence of parents is quite low or is not very good, or parents are suffering in some way, especially if Rahu is eclipsing Sun and Moon. So typically those children, so a weak Sun and Moon and Rahu basically shows people who could be orphans, on whom that cover of parentage or parents has been taken away by Rahu. So Rahu typically shows people who have lost that cover on top. Now, 5th house, Sun and the Magha Nakshatra, these are also Karakas for Pitris. And association of Sun, Moon, Rahu, Ketu and Saturn, you will find uh, if there are people who come and say to you that, okay, my Rahu period is not going good, I have the Sun period, I have the Moon sub period, and it's not going very well, and they have combinations of Moon, of basically Rahu, Ketu and Saturn with these planets, you'll find that they will have trouble because of some kind of Pitradosh. You may also include 5th and 9th house along with this, and the Sun and Jupiter along with this, along with Rahu, Ketu and Saturn combinations, to be able to figure out that, okay, some kind of Pitradosh is working. Now, how does Pitradosh actually manifest, and what kind of things actually happen in your life? We'll come to that, uh, and covering that topic, we'll say now what are the different ways in which basically Rahu, one of the Karaka for the Pitris, kind of disturbs Sun and Moon. So you will see that uh, people who have this kind of an affliction, Rahu Saturn affliction coming to Sun and Moon or the Jupiter, uh, the 5th and the 9th lords, you will see that they are tormented by some kind of paranormal activity. So I have seen some cases where basically they will see snakes in their dreams, typically when there's a Rahu Saturn combination, because Saturn stands for snakes. Saturn also stands for fear. It stands for dark things, black things, things which you cannot understand. Also, Rahu basically shows those spirits uh, who are there. They don't have a physical form. So if somebody asks you, many times people will ask on a forum and say that, okay, I have photographs of my ancestors. Where should I put them? You are activating Rahu in your chart, because photographs and ancestors, I mean, typically they are Rahu. So the moment you start putting them, you're actually giving Rahu more energy. So if there is a Pitta dosh in the chart, I'm not very sure if you should actually do that. So get the advice of a good astrologer or an expert to basically give you an advice on this. And Rahu also stands for a lot of paranormal activities, things which happen suddenly in your mind, suddenly in your brain, and you don't find any reason because of that, for such a thing to happen. Rahu also stands for intuition. So the moment you start having Pitri dosh, Rahu will start acting in very funny ways in your chart, and it can bring a lot of dark energy in your life. Typically, if Rahu is troubling your fifth house, you're going to have problems with childbirth and progeny. Also, you may have mental or physical disability in the house, because fifth house stands for your Purva Punya. Punya in the sense, Punya of the Purvas, not Punya from previous births. And Rahu in the fifth house may give you a very flashy intuition, but at the same time, if you see that in the chart the person is actually suffering on the education front or suffering in the progeny front, this Rahu is basically carrying some Pitri dosh along with it. And what I've also seen, what I've also seen that when Rahu basically kind of mixes up with Saturn, so say if Rahu is aspecting Saturn or Rahu Saturn conjunction is happening, I've written one point here: income issues and debts. That should be under Saturn related problems. That's put in the wrong place. You will see Saturn, which is the Karaka for scarcity, which is the Karaka for slowing things down, which is the Karaka for also uh, a lot of hard work. Basically, I mean, for Saturn to move, you have to put in a lot of hard work. You will see your desires, because Rahu is your desires, will cause you to take some actions in your profession, which is Saturn, which will ultimately cause you a lot of financial tightness. And financial tightness could also mean you could be ending up taking up debts, but there'll be in general be scarcity of funds at that time. This also shows that your Pitris are not very happy, and they are not being able to help you to fulfill your desires, or you are being misdirected, and uh, which is where you need to do some remedies. Now, very simple, a few very simple set of remedies traditionally which people have been doing. Water a banyan tree. I mean, this is as simple as that. Some a banyan tree which is very close to your house. Why? Because uh, a lot of trees, people tree, banyan tree, they are supposed to be hosting a lot of spirits which basically, which when respected, can help you and help you basically get the paranormal help or benefit when needed. Other simple traditional remedies, basically giving food and clothes in the temple. If you can't go to the temple, you can give it to the poor. Saturn typically stands for crows, and as you know, giving pinddan to crows is basically one of the very traditional remedies. It is something which is expected as a part of the ritual itself during Shraddha. Another remedy which I have seen working is basically plant the tree of Rahu's nakshatra. If Rahu is not very happy, if Rahu is giving you all the bad results, if you are seeing paranormal activities, financial indebtedness, if you're having problem with kids because kids not being born or male progeny not being born, check out the Rahu. And if Rahu is basically the planet which you find is a culprit, plant a tree of Rahu's nakshatra. It gradually starts improving Rahu's results over time. Or you can do havan with the wood of tree of Rahu's nakshatra. So if say your Rahu is in Swati, you can use the tree or the bark of Arjun tree and uh, and use that in a havan, and it will start giving you some very good results. Now, Lal Kitab has a slightly different perspective with respect to our ancestors. Uh, Primarily, it takes the 12th house and Rahu as basically the karakas for our ancestors or Pitris. And it now Rahu is ancestor from the father's side and Ketu is ancestor from the mother's side. And what it says is that an afflicted 12th house typically shows you have problems with respect to your Pitris, and that will manifest as problem with your Rahu. Your Rahu will stop giving those good results that normally people have come to expect in this age of Rahu. Now, Pitri Rin is basically one way where basically Rahu will come back to take all those things away from you, cause you all the torment and problem in case your Pitris, they have cheated somebody. And that is also one way of basically seeing how Rahu is behaving. If it is not letting you get the results you want, there is Pitri Rin in the chart as well. Now, the reasons which Lal Kitab says are the reasons because of which there could be Pitri Dosh in the chart. Either the ancestors have harmed some religious place, or some family priest has not been served. Now, which could mean basically if there is traditionally a temple or some religious place which a family used to go, it has not been served. or even if some people or some banyan tree around has been destroyed. These all lead to pitri dosh. So if you basically or your ancestors did some kind of a construction of a plot or something because of which some temple area was either destroyed or removed, or some place of worship got destroyed, that leads to some very heavy pitri pitri dosh. And typically some of the remedies which Lal Kitab suggests in this case is collect money from all the family members, all means all, and donate to the religious place and collect equal amount. Now what that Lal Kitab is trying to say here is, when Rahu is basically causing problems because the 12th house is not in a good shape, which is what Lal Kitab says is where your Pitris reside, then 12th house, so 2, 5, 9 and 12 are called the Dharmasthan according to Lal Kitab. Then these will stop behaving properly. Some harm has been done over there because of which you are having these problems in life. So go ahead and clean a religious place which is nearest to your house and do it regularly. Typically Lal Kitab says 43 weeks, but depending on the kind of karma that has been done, it may actually take longer. So one of the problems I've seen with 12th house remedies, you have to keep doing it consistently, constantly all your life, because 12th house results and 8th house results are not in your control. So you have to do this kind of lifelong. But then in general, this is a good remedy. Cleaning a religious place is not going to bring you any harm. So go ahead, check it out, and most probably it will give you some very good results. Also, if you see in India, in the north, people typically go to a banyan tree, a peepal tree, and basically they pour water over there and basically take care of it. You'll see a lot of ladies who actually tie a red roli or some kind of a thread. They basically put their desires or ask, pray for the desires to get fulfilled. And all over India, this was the tradition, because it is said that the banyan tree and the spirits living on it have the power to be able to fulfill your desires. You never cut down a peepal tree or a banyan tree. If it dies on its own, you let it die, but you never cut it down. This is the power of these trees. So Lal Kitab says, take care of a banyan tree or a peepal tree which is closest to your house, and you will expect some you will be able to get some very immediate help whenever you have these kind of pitri dosh or problem related to pitris which are coming or manifesting in your life. So this was the this is a very introductory kind of a video um, for the pitris and the shad and the rituals one needs to do to be able to remove pitri dosh and be able to give pitri rin. Now there are many layers and many depths to this, many shlokas which have been written in BPHs around it, and also in Lal Kitab. We'll cover them in more detail in some other videos. This is just an introductory video, and please feel free to write your comments and feedback in the feedback section, comment section. Thanks, and take care. Bye bye.